Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and we have set a new record for XRP Las Vegas ticket sales. You're not going to want to miss this, folks. Go to XRPLasVegas.com. Chris Giancarlo, Brad Garlinghouse, Kevin Maloney, Simon McLaughlin, Cody Carbone, Digital Chamber. And this is just the beginning of the announcements, folks. There's going to be a lot more, and they're going to be on stage having fireside chats, being interviewed. It's going to be wild, and there are going to be thousands there this year. We have crushed the record, and we're only in January, folks, or at the end of January. The link's in the description, or just go to xrplasvegas.com to get your discount tickets and discount MGM Grand room. Someone asked me in my comments yesterday if I was going to be there. Of course I'm going to be there. This is the big event, and it's the largest XRP conference in the world, and it's going to be larger than it's ever been by, I believe, 3 to 4-fold this year. The market has remained flat. I think this market is being held down because of all the things that are imminent, all these ETFs and all this stuff. Wall Street has to be playing an invisible hand somewhere, but this thing, I believe it's the rockets. They're on the platform, and those engines are warming up. You can feel it. All right, watch this. I've said it for a long time. Bitcoin was a prototype. I believe that the blockchain technology was sitting on the. I don't believe it. We can prove it. Blockchain technology was sitting on the shelf for decades. Remember, DARPA created the internet. And if you think that the internet of information was important, wait till you see the internet of value. You think that they didn't anticipate the US dollar as a world reserve currency being in jeopardy or being threatened? You think they didn't plan for this? I believe crypto was was more important than the Manhattan Project. That's what I believe. Listen to Chris Giancarlo. He's talking about I believe this was intentionally hatched right out of the financial crisis. It was taken off the shelf at the perfect time, and Bitcoin was just the prototype.
If we knew in 2008 that a failure of Lehman Brothers would have only triggered $9 billion of market failure, we could have let it fail. Or we could have bailed it out, the government. Or the government could have put it up for sale. There would have been policy options available that were not available because of the lack of transparency.
Transparency. Who's the most transparent company in all of crypto, and has been from the very beginning, and tried to work with regulators from the very beginning? Ripple. And you'll see Ripple at the end of this video, by the way.
And here's the point I want to make. It was not longer after the failure of Lehman Brothers that I read the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper that proposed a basically global internet ledger of all the recorded transactions. If all of the exposures of Lehman Brothers had been on a digital ledger, we would have known in real time. And guess what? There wouldn't have been a crisis.
Yeah.
Because we would have had crises caused because of the fog of war. Nobody knows where the real exposure is. If all the exposure was...
It's about that, and liquidity always has been.
Written down on an immutable ledger, we would have known, and we could have taken steps to avoid a crisis.
Yep.
Attribute of a healthy liquid market is really resilience. And that is getting at the ability for a market to recover from a significant systemic event.
Now that part of that Ripple drop, that clip right there, when it was first put out, this section was deleted immediately. But the XRP army was sitting there listening, and somebody had already videoed it, recorded it. Wonder why. And then we've got this from the guy, Black Swan Capitalist. I love these guys. These guys have always gotten it. I want to play you a little bit of this.
1 year later, in 2009, Bitcoin emerged. If you actually look at all the events that took place in 2009, there are multiple big events that didn't get the world's attention because they weren't meant to, but it was out there and it was happening. So in 2009, when Bitcoin was created, a few other things happened that are extremely significant. The United Nations held a panel about and discussing a new global reserve currency. This is public information. Anybody could verify it. This happened in 2009 with the United Nations. And of course, it wasn't publicly broadcasted, but it was taking place, and it's verifiable. In 2009, and this was when Bitcoin was created. Additionally, in 2009, this is when all central banks around the world agreed to reset interest rates to near zero. So this was a jubilee in itself. It was an interest rate jubilee. It was a reset. So that happened in 2009. And of course, that's when Bitcoin was created. Now, it's very interesting because Bitcoin was extremely under the radar and really didn't get any momentum until, a couple of years later. That's when it started getting attention. So just not to, drift off too much here, but in essence, it seems to me that Bitcoin was designed to lure in retail, and it was a very strategic narrative painted around it to
this day it is
convince, technologists and investors and just people in general over time that it's this libertarian movement that will allow you to operate outside of the traditional system. But that's very far from the truth, because as you could see, BlackRock, some, big institutions and government entities and some whales, and you don't know who those whales are. They could be government entities or just an individual billionaire oligarch, but these are the biggest holders of Bitcoin. And what's interesting there is this is a perfect way to fully control something. So one can consider the system decentralized, but in reality, when you zoom out, it's a decentralized in a centralized system because you have these few entities that hold the majority of it. So how is that decentralized in the grand scheme of things?
Bingo. Now, this right here, and I do mean this, folks, even though we go at the Bitcoin maxis and all, we only do it, by the way, in response to them trying to create their monopoly or continue their monopoly. Remember, and I'll remind you, Michael Saylor was the one who wanted all other digital assets to be securities. He wanted only Bitcoin to have an ETF. We've got it on video, and then he and all the and I'm not referring to your average Bitcoin holder. I'm talking about the maxis that think only Bitcoin is the only thing that should exist, and all others should be gone after by the government, because that's what they believe. The lunatics, and I would put him in that category. But against that backdrop, I mean, they're going to lose that. This will be their third time losing when they realize that it's not just going to be a Bitcoin strategic reserve. But I do, and I still want Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Cardano. I want them all to do well. But I want them to do well on a level playing field in a competitive environment. That's what the United States has always been about, competition. Not just because they've been, the government's picked winners and losers, which is what they've done to this point. Including Gary Gensler. He did not do anything to Bitcoin. He allowed a Bitcoin ETF. He always said Bitcoin was a commodity. He kept that monopoly in place for them, okay? Against that backdrop, I've seen this movie, folks, and I wrote it right here. We live in a world where the media builds you up and then breaks you down. I hope this is not Saylor's fate. I really do. I want Bitcoin to do well. I want him to get rich. I want everybody to get rich. But I want him to do it on a level playing field where the government's not picking winners and losers. That's a fact. And we said it all during ETHgate about Ethereum too. I hope this is not Saylor's fate, but I've seen this movie so many times and my gut is screaming at me on this one. And then right below, well, I can't even show you the comments because I'm still locked out on my computer out of X because their support's terrible. But I want to show you who responded. CZ Binance, the CEO of Binance, who has been to prison literally, responded to that tweet I just did and said, went through this, and with his laughing emoji. If anybody would know, it's him. And then there's this from the NASDAQ.
For a lot of viewers who are kind of new to crypto and don't really know what to think about stablecoins, don't really know what to think about wrapped assets like wrapped treasuries, stablecoins are great because they help keep value on chain where it needs to be. Wrapped treasuries and RWA items that are used for collateral are great. They allow people to keep things on chain, just to keep everything away from the fiat world. That's critically important. They say, well, how does that affect me? I don't know what to buy after Bitcoin. All of those things have to settle on a blockchain. They're not their own blockchains. They might settle on Ethereum or another blockchain, but they're going to need one. So when everyday investors are thinking, how can they expand their crypto knowledge outside of Bitcoin? Think of all the things that we're talking about. Most of them are going to have to settle, be executed and cleared onto a blockchain. Which blockchain those are going to be among the winners. So just a little bit to spread the knowledge. We're trying to get people past Bitcoin, which basically just moves from one address to another, into the future of finance. And all of the stuff that we're talking about here is going to have to participate.
They're trying to tell you, folks. And then watch this one.
I want to ask you about the ETF market while we have you here. We don't get Nelson here that often, so I want to pick your brains. This is one of the many things in your portfolio is to make sure the NASDAQ ETF business continues to do well. It seems to me there's two big trends here. One is the cryptocurrency trend. The cryptocurrency biggest, I don't know if it's the most successful launch ever, but 150 billion in assets in 1 year is pretty darn good. You have IBIT, which is the biggest one out there, is lists on NASDAQ, right? The BlackRock ETF. Give us some riff on that, if you will. And then the other trend I see is sort of option-based ETFs in general. But talk about crypto first.
We're still obviously big proponents of the active market. So I think there's still a lot more money in active assets, but more new money going into ETF assets. That's very clear. 2 out of every $3 is moving in that direction. So we just continue to see demand for ETFs being built by NASDAQ. It's not just NASDAQ, though. There's other big providers out there. So I just think we are continuing to see this trend of passive, but you need to have active to marry that so you don't end up being too concentrated just in active. I think we're in a unique moment in time to say how does active continue to have a role. So you do have moments where a whole sector gets developed around something like digital or crypto, and now potentially having more clarity on the rules of what it actually is going to be.
Do you anticipate we will? We keep waiting for this grand piece of legislation for years now. That it seems more real now, the possibility.
It feels as real as ever. So just being over at the World Economic Forum, there's a lot of the players in the digital space, but then you start talk of the institutional side, the banks saying, well, if there's rule clarity, we're going to be more active in the space. So I think it certainly feels like to us, their mandate from the top saying there's going to be more clarity is coming.
Yeah.
Here it comes. This is a great little, there was a tweet thread, and I had to put them out here side by side because of being locked out of freaking X on my computer. But Austin King, who is coming to XRP Las Vegas, did this really good thread. Step 1, prove out tokenization technology by launching RLUSD. This guy sold his company to Ripple. Step 2, begin expanding with low-risk tokenized assets like treasury bills, low trillions. Step 3, tokenized debt and equities, tens of trillions. Step 4, tokenized derivatives and beyond, hundreds of trillions. Remember when Kendra Hill, who disappeared from social media, said it was always about derivatives? And then here he is on, I guess, is this NASDAQ? Nice TV.
What are other projects that you're excited about within the crypto ecosystem, Austin?
There are a ton out there. I'm really excited about stablecoins. That's one that I think is offering very concrete financial utility for people across the world. Specifically, Ripple's new stablecoin is one that I've been paying very close attention to.
What about that new stablecoin is on your radar?
Yeah, so I sold my first company to Ripple. I've been very involved with that company for a very long time now. And I think just throughout the years, they've been around since like 2013. So a decade of building relationships with existing financial companies is something that I think is super important when you're trying to drive adoption of these new technologies.
Anything else? For 2025, Austin?
For 2025, I think the growth of like real world assets, so like treasury bills on chain and tokenized securities, I think is a huge area for growth as well.
How is the incoming administration expected to impact this space?
honestly, as an American who lives in New York City, building in this industry over the past 7 years, it's fantastic. I can see a bunch of other American builders finally excited, like we are going to get clarity from the regulatory perspective here, and that's going to unblock a lot of progress here. There's like very legitimate, valuable technology being built here.
Okay, and then he says this. A flywheel effect will take place. XRP will tokenize more assets. Omni will expand those assets across on-chain economy, incentivizing more institutions to tokenize assets on XRP. This is the 1,000 times opportunity, and it's going to happen sooner than you expect. That is huge, folks. All right, in DAIXRP.com, we have so much more. There's a new company who has announced an XRP ETF. There's also a promotional campaign that just went live against Bill Hinman and why he shouldn't be anywhere near crypto. That's interesting too. I got a lot more things we're going to cover. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.